Captain Picard. Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
My Readier Room.
Welcome to the Readier Room, the only and longest running Star Trek The Next Generation rewatch podcast. Ours has on-the-set stories and behind-the-scenes lore told to you by the only people who are the keepers of that lore. My name is Mitchell Mells, Chief Consultant of Services at Paramount Studios, and with me is my life partner, Brandon Hobbs. And we're here for a historic day with a historic episode. But before that, Brandon, how are you?
Doing wonderful. I cannot tell you how free I feel after having watched this episode in just so many ways. And I'm really excited to get down to it.
It's a cathartic type of therapy.
It truly is.
I want to say. Yes. And I think perhaps the most therapeutic moment of it all will be this roundup that we're doing after the fact, after having watched it. It's something I've been excited about for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, since we started the show, I'm like, when are we going to get to Skin of Evil?
Well, yeah, and it's like it's kind of like, on the one hand, you're excited to get to it, and on the other, you're excited to leave it behind. You know, so it's almost like we've really gotten over a hump, or maybe descended into a valley that we can now climb out of.
Right. See, to be honest, I was so surprised when it was this week because I had thought that Skin of Evil had to have been like season 2 or 3 or 4, just because,
right.
You know, it felt like so long having to put up with that.
Right. But, you know, when you think about it, you know, we did, 7 seasons or so, and you forget about it. You forget how long it actually was into this first season that we get to this episode, you know?
Yes.
And I mean, going into this, when we started doing this, I expected Skin of Evil to be episode 10, 11, 12, something like that. But no, it's right near the end of the season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So having gotten to this point is a milestone, I think, for us now, even.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's more monumentous than when we actually finish this season, I think.
Right. Definitely.
Our lives are divided into 2 periods, which are the pre-Skin of Evil period and the post-Skin of Evil period.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, as much as we want to dive into this one, we do have to hold off just for a bit. We have our weekly question of the week, which we answer every week. And this one comes from a fan named Joel in Louisiana. Let me read this. Says, "Hey Mitch, Brandon." I think he's missing an "and" there.
Oh, hello.
Readier fan here. I've been waiting for you to cover Skin of Evil to send this in. And while it's not much of a question, I think you'd like to know this. So, Joel's talking here. He says, I worked at Microsoft back in the 1990s, and we were designing Windows XP. I saw Skin of Evil on a rerun one night, and the image of the Yar Memorial at the end of the episode was really striking. Alright, well, first of all, spoilers, but anyway. I just knew I needed a landscape like that as the background wallpaper of the operating system. I browsed some stock photos and found just the one. So, if my fellow ensigns out there have ever used Windows XP, you have the next generation to thank for the iconic image that greeted you upon booting up. Thanks again for doing the show. So, I never knew any of that. Did you know this?
Right. No, I did not.
Have you used Windows XP before?
I think we both used Windows XP before. I mean, we know what he's talking about for sure. That's great.
Yeah. It's the footprint, the cultural footprint of Star Trek The Next Generation is larger than it appears at first. It's
yeah, it absolutely is.
There's more hidden footprints under the surface around it. It ripples.
Right.
It's like a footprint inside of a lake.
Right.
The rippling effect. It's great. So I think that's an extremely interesting story, but unfortunately, it's not a question.
It's not a question.
So I really,
this is the second time.
Right. I'm just gonna have to block Joel from contacting us on our various accounts. I don't really want our time wasted.
Yeah.
So embarrassing. But if you at home have a question, an actual question with a question mark and an answer that you're looking for, then you can email us at thereadierroom@gmail.com. It's capital T and 2 capital R's. Or you can DM us on Twitter at the Readier Room. I'm sorry, at the Readier Room. And we'll probably answer your question there.
Possibly.
If it's good. I mean, if it's not, then don't even fucking send it.
And don't send it if it's not a question.
Right. I'm sick of this. See, I don't vet these things before we go live. So
Right.
it's very
Right.
frustrating to start with what looks like a promising question only to end with a flaccid statement.
Mm-hmm. I guess we're gonna have to get our producer to start looking through these for us.
Yeah.
God knows he doesn't do anything else for us. So
just a useless piece of oversized garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very oversized.
Very oversized. Speaking of oversized garbage.
Wow, that's quite the segue.
Skin of Evil. And
Skin of Evil.
God, how do I even sum up my thoughts on this episode? I think we can agree that there's a lot of this episode that just doesn't work.
Can we agree that this is the worst episode yet?
I don't think I can.
Wow.
So, if I were to look at the plot, the main thrust of things, then I think I would agree. But the fact is that there's a lot of good direction, and the score of this episode is also notable.
Well, yeah, the score is good.
The score is
good. But that's about all I can agree with.
I thought that there was a lot of handheld camera scenes. It was just more visually interesting and well put together in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say it's it's a good episode. They held the camera. They worked so hard. Nothing like that. But it was visually striking in a way that most episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation are not. And solely because of that, I have to give it more credit than something that was visually boring and also had a story basically on the same bad level like Naked Now.
I guess that's fair. I don't know. I don't know if I can really properly put into words the way I feel about this episode, but I really think that I would watch Naked Now again before this one.
Really?
I just find it so banal, so boring. I mean, Naked Now is at least funny bad,
Right. Yes, that's true.
This is just kind of depressing bad, and the good things that it does really just don't make up for how bad the script is.
It is, and there's some really apparent structural flaws in how this episode was even approached. I think giving Armis, the tar monster, a voice was kind of ridiculous.
Yes.
And especially when he's basically written to have the voice of a petulant teenager.
Right. Which, was of course intentional.
Of course.
We actually modeled Armis. I mean, I know you know this, but for the audience, we modeled Armis on both in looks and personality on Rick's son, actually.
Rick Berman.
Rick Berman, yeah, and because he'd bring this kid on set, and he was old enough to know better. He was 11, 12 years old at the time, and the little bastard was just constantly running around screaming about the dumbest stuff, I want Happy Meal, just that kind of stuff.
Spoiled kid,
just being a complete menace. And the writers thought with Armis they'd be able to strike a chord with Rick somehow, get him to kind of just become aware of what was going on set. It was getting in the way of our jobs. We couldn't do our jobs. but Rick actually kind of ended up connecting with Armus and feeling sorry for it by the end of the episode. He thought this episode had, you know, some kind of depth to it that really wasn't there.
Right. He thought it was a tragic tale of this poor
Right,
misunderstood creature.
Right. Which it's objectively not. You know, listening to the dialogue, especially the way it was delivered by you know.
Yeah, I don't know who did the voice acting of Armus. I know that the person doing the voice and the person like in the suit were different. But the voice
Were they?
Yeah.
Why did I think it was the same?
I'm not sure.
I guess it makes sense that it wouldn't be the same. I mean, now that I actually think about it, but
right. I mean, because think you want to record dialogue from underneath that whole getup,
right.
But before we get into the physical acting of it, what was up with Armis's voice? Because it also was not a good choice. It was just bad.
Yeah.
The heavy effects that are processed into it are distracting, but also not heavy enough where you can still tell it's just a guy like doing a menacing voice. Like,
right. And
not good.
I'm not sure. I don't remember if the direction was that he was supposed to sound kind of like a whiny teenager, like you said before, but that is exactly what it comes off as. And you get, there's just no complexity to this character at all.
Right, which is weird because the thrust of his presence is supposed to be like his emotional struggle, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that there would be more depth written into that, when the whole point is just not him being a menacing monster man with powers, but him his psyche.
Right, and I think just the fact that he is a tar monster really doesn't do him any favors.
Rarely does
he's
it.
A faceless kind of yeah. It's a terrible design, if you can even call it that.
See, I like when it's introduced. I thought that was kind of intriguing, where there's like this puddle, and it's you know, seemingly sentient, and it's following them around and acting as this barrier. Like, I thought that was kind of cool, but once he rises out of it, it's not so cool, not so awesome.
Yeah, that goes south very quickly.
It does, and it's whenever Armus isn't doing that, it's a lot more appealing. Like when it covers the shuttle, and it's just interfacing with Troy, and like trying to psychologically torment her, but really just being terrible at it. That was kind of cool.
Right.
There was also when it like pulls Riker into it, and then Riker seemingly doesn't exist in physical space anymore. It's like bending reality or physics in that way. That was kind of cool. And then sometimes I'm just gonna take the form of a big goopy man. What are you gonna do about it?
Right.
Let's talk about that real quick. The fact that this thing, first of all, what is this story about? This is a story about bullying, and how it solves all of our problems. It's like
and it's funny, we got 2 PSA episodes in a row.
I guess we did. Jesus. But in this case, it's like, oh yeah, that emotionally vulnerable person with the dark past, bully them to achieve your goals.
Right.
Picard beams down like, I'm gonna bully this thing, and then this guy tries to fight back, and he's got Troy captured, and Troy's just like one-upping him every step of the way. It's like he tries to say something, she's like, you're just saying that to make me feel bad, and he's like, no, no.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of that really delves into what makes this character not work at all, and what makes this conflict not work at all, is that it really is a pathetic creature,
right?
And Yar's death, spoiler, I guess, which we haven't gotten into, Yar's death does not feel earned at all.
No,
to me,
it's the kind of attack that you would see like in any episode. It doesn't have the
Right.
gravitas of something
Right.
lethal.
Right.
And that the way to write this character is to make it more competent in areas beyond just like, you know, physical attacks.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like give it an actual intelligence and emotional intelligence that when Picard goes to I guess verbally spar with it, it's like actually two people on the same level, because Picard's also
Right,
like
right.
a really competent guy, rather than
Mhm.
just like I said, what is bullying, where there's somebody so much less stable than you are, and all you're really doing is just tormenting them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this could have been good, but anyway, let's
Mhm.
talk about Yar. Like you said, it's unearned. Yar just gets like flung. Nothing hits her. She just like gets
Yeah.
thrown off.
She
her
gets
feet.
thrown. In the same way that Data threw her.
Nice
You know,
callback.
a couple episodes ago.
Nice call.
Yeah. Thank you. But it, you know, it is with the exact same amount of force.
Right.
Um,
And there's no
you
there's no like fall. In fact, the fall from Data's throw was
Right.
larger.
Yeah. There's no fault. There's no lacerations. No wounds.
Well, no, there is like
Um,
a Gorbachev birthmark on her cheek afterwards.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh my god, Yar's injured. Beam her up. Get us out of
Mhm.
here. And then it's like this ER scene. This is where they brought in the handheld camera, and they're like getting in close,
Right.
like,
Right. That's
panning
true.
around, and
Mhm.
they're like, oh, you know, we got to save her. Give her 10 cc's of electricity.
Right.
And it's
And then-
you don't really have the sense from the scene before it that this is like an urgent matter.
No, not at all. We're not worried at all. I mean, we've seen people get brought back to life from worse.
Right. And Crusher's like, oh, I'm not gonna do that this time.
Yeah, right. So it's like I understand the idea that you would want a death to, like, you would want this particular death to have no like real fanfare, right?
Mm.
I get that idea, but it almost feels like the rug was pulled out from underneath us in the way it was portrayed, in that you know, it was unexpected but also kind of flaccid in the end.
Yeah.
You know, the characters just kind of throw their arms up and say, well, she's dead.
Yes.
And you know,
there's not a lot dealing with the emotional fallout of this,
Mhm.
which
right.
was another direction they could have taken the episode instead. Minimize the importance of Armis and rather focus on the crew in light of.
That's
of
right,
Yar's
yeah.
death.
And you know what? That actually probably would have been much better.
Right, but you know,
because that is a much more human problem.
that would have had to. You would have had to write the characters to be emotionally vulnerable and have depth, and that's
Right,
not going to
right.
happen. But
Right.
on the subject of the seemingly inconsequence of the proceedings, it's like that was kind of the point of it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that the amount of gravity given to it in the episode and the way it was hyped up before
Yeah.
it aired are
Right.
at complete
It was
opposite
big,
odds
yeah.
of the spectrum. Yeah. Like
yeah, we had a whole thing going on, right?
Yep. All the bumpers for like the week before or leading up to it, all the advertisements were like very upfront. Someone will
Right.
die, and it
Mhm.
was dramatic, like cutting between the shots of different characters in the show. It's like, who's it gonna be? And it was the talk of the town, and like,
Right.
you know, we wanted to put some red herrings in there, so we had like in one of the adverts we put very subtly in the background like backwards Klingon talk, and if you deciphered that code, you'd be like, "Oh my god, is it Worf?" In another one, we had like heavy shades of red, white, and blue, which, as we all know, are the colors of the French flags. Like, oh my god, is Picard
Right.
gonna die?
Picard.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
which, you know, would have been That could have happened. I mean, Patrick Stewart was already a pretty big name for being in Star Trek. So who's to say he wouldn't say screw it and just leave in the first season?
But all of that was like we didn't put any hints in for Yar that she was going to be the one killed. It was like supposed to be a subversion in that sense,
Right.
And it worked almost too well because when you have such a nothing character like Yar, nobody's going to think that, okay, well, if Yar dies, they're going to call it some event and they're going to hype it up because really, who cares?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I think that ended up working against us in the.
It kind of did, and you get a scene like at the beginning of the episode where she has this interaction with Worf that is just completely out of left field because it's nothing that ever would have been written for her character before that. It was only written for her character because she's about to die.
Right.
And if she actually did interact with these other characters in that way for the first 10, 12 episodes, she probably would have been a lot more watchable,
Yeah, I was hoping that more human Yar elements would have been explored. They introduced like a relationship with Data, which is now officially done.
It's certainly over, yes.
But it's not even mentioned in this episode.
No, which I thought that was odd.
Yeah. I was hoping for that during the last scene. But no, I guess it was a sweep that under the rug kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, and it's really ultimately I think they just went too far in one direction, and that was place no emotional importance on this event at all,
which is oddly sterile and clinical. But
it's clinical in a way that really Star Trek should never be. Again, I understand the desire to not hype it up so much in the episode itself, but I mean, there was a lot of push and pull among the writers about how to actually go about this scene, right? Like, and Gene wanted it to be very realistic, and others thought, in the same way we're discussing now, it would be kind of a disservice to not give her some kind of send off, right?
Right.
And that's how we get the scene at the end, right? Where it's definitely a peculiar scene. But initially the episode was written such that basically Yara would get swept off her feet and Crusher would run over holding her arms, and then the crew would beam down to the planet one by one, right? And she would lay there saying her goodbyes for like a good 5-10 minutes. Just kind of we'd have the score kind of swell and make it a whole thing, and
a true Emmy nominated scene.
It would have been, and I'm actually surprised we didn't keep it. I mean, we even had the Klingon death scream in there.
Oh my god, it would have elevated not only this episode but the show in that season, certainly.
Absolutely, yeah. It would have been great, but no, we did end up with literally this whole emotional crux of the episode, I guess, being shoehorned into the last 5 minutes of the episode.
I don't even think the ending is all that emotional, to be honest.
Right.
So,
the
way that it's written is that Yar has recorded not a will, but like I don't even know how to describe it, like a farewell message, I guess, to be played holographically.
Yeah.
And she uses that message to praise every other member of the crew. So, like, Riker, you always believed in me. Your leadership is so strong. You play the trombone, whatever. And she says this for every other member of the cast. But when you're supposedly emotionally primed to, mourn the loss of Yar, the way to capitalize on that emotion is not to spend 5 minutes talking about every character that isn't Tasha Yar. So that was an incredibly strange decision to me to go with that. Here's something: did you notice that the holograph of Yar had really bad posture
No.
It's I didn't write this in my notes, and I didn't really think about it while I was watching it, but I'm imagining that scene in my head now, and I'm like, wow, she just kind of like bent over. It's weird.
She was like hunched over. I guess I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
I was too busy crying, I think.
I couldn't blame you. It's worth the rewatch just to check it out.
I did have a few issues with that scene though that I'd like to go over.
Is one of them the Data conversation afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no,
Oh.
no, not afterwards. I'll let me go in order.
Okay.
She addresses Wesley,
Okay.
right? Which I don't think needs much explanation.
No, I mean,
I'm not sure why Wesley is allowed to be there.
They did share the drug scene, which
They did. You know, that was probably just like preparation for this, right? Considering we
establishes
filmed
them as
we
friends.
filmed that after this, so yeah,
Mhm.
we were able to fill in that blank. Yeah, I still don't know why Wesley is allowed to participate in these kinds of things, as if he's any more special than the subordinates that Yar had. You know, who would probably like to be able to mourn her death because they work with her every day. She says to Troy something like, "I realized I could be feminine without losing anything," which for a character played by Denise is just wrong.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just actually incorrect.
I remember when we were doing recording that, filming that.
Right.
A number of people just like had the gag reflex upon hearing that line.
Lots of Snickers going around.
Yeah, a lot of Milky Ways too.
Yeah. You call it Three Musketeers.
Mm-hmm.
The whole 9 yards, really. The whole 9 yards. And then she says to Data, "You see things with the wonder of a child," which, for someone who has a sexual relationship with Data, I find somewhat concerning.
That is off, and it's also a bit insulting to the autistic demographic.
It certainly is. Yes, you're right about that.
But even in universe, it's concerning.
And yeah, those are my issues with that scene. Did you want to discuss the scene with Data?
Yeah. So at the end, after the funeral, Data's like, "Captain, I don't get the meaning of this ritual." And
Right.
Picard's like, "Data, I'm sick of answering these fucking questions. Go read a fucking book." No, there's like this whole thing about, humans are sentimental and we want to remember, or I don't even remember what the hell they said, but Picard explaining to the audience why funerals exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the most blatant, we have 90 seconds left to fill, that I've ever seen in production.
You think so?
I do think so, because I don't think that there's anything gained for anybody's characterization or for the theme of the episode or for anything to just have one character explain to another why funeral services exist.
I guess that's true in that it's pretty unambiguous even to an android who's only been alive for 2 years, what a funeral is for. I'm sure he's heard of them before. Although I guess maybe he hasn't participated in one to such a degree that he would, as a human, feel emotionally attached to the person who died.
But here's the thing: so you can't play both sides of the fence with Data. You can't have him have access to all of Starfleet records and reading Shakespeare and absorbing all this culture, and then also have him not understand the meaning of a funeral.
Well, I think it's more of an emotional thing, isn't it? I mean, you can't like research emotions, You can, but not your own personal ones. You can never be prepared for someone dying.
But here's the thing: the question isn't like, oh, why is everybody crying now that Yar's gone? The question is like, what is the meaning of this ritual that everybody's doing?
What does he say? He says like what? Like that the funeral seemed like it was more for everyone else than for her? Or
I don't remember the quote.
Or did he say that he was more concerned about himself than for her? Because the latter it makes sense to me why they would include that, and I think it's appropriate at least.
If that's
but I sadly can't remember.
If that's the case, I can agree with you. Here's a Readier Room first. I'm gonna just open the episode and go fucking find what he said, because this is really
Well, why don't
bothering me.
why don't we just get the script up? Just get the script. Hold on.
You still have the script?
All right, I pulled it out of my desk here.
Okay.
Flipping through. Sir, the purpose of this gathering confuses me. Oh, how so? My thoughts are not for Tasha, but for myself. I keep thinking how empty it will feel without her presence. Did I miss the point? No, you didn't, Data. You got it. Yeah, see?
All right. That's a little better
it's
than my
appropriate.
recollection of it.
I'm glad you just remembered it wrong.
Well, to be fair, I remembered Data's question correctly, but the rest of the conversation, I think I heard that, and I just rolled my eyes and tuned out.
Yeah, so
it's got big
Mm-hmm.
Data doesn't understand anything vibes.
Yeah,
to it.
no, it does have that energy to it, which usually I'm very much against. But I think when he is grappling with an emotional issue, I'm much more lenient about it, because, I mean, he is
sense.
emotionally retarded.
Right.
He's a 2-year-old autistic android. And the audience also needs that surrogate to be able to understand things as well, and they need someone to explain emotions to them, because you know what kind of people watch Star Trek.
Exactly. No, that's a good point.
And when you think about it, it's a really good thing that that Denise and Marina got switched up in the beginning, because imagine if we had to kill Troy.
Imagine. I mean,
We
the thought has
wouldn't have,
crossed my mind a lot, if I'm being honest.
It would have been a disaster. But then, we also wouldn't have to be treated to things like what we got in this episode, where she's speaking to this pile of goo, telling him, I guess, very, very obviously what his emotions are, as if we couldn't really grasp the theme of the episode.
The monster's like, I am the skin of evil that they shedded, and then and then Troy's like, you're evil.
Yeah.
Imagine if the Troy Worf Riker love triangle from later on was instead the Yar Worf Riker love triangle.
You're gonna make me throw up.
Yes,
that's gross.
Before we get out of the final scene, there is an inaccuracy that bothers a lot of people that I feel like we should explain.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. How could we forget?
I just don't want to be asked about this ever again.
Right.
So I just want to get it out there. I know that Dr. Crusher's wearing a green tunic in the funeral rather than a blue one. I know. We used a blue screen. You can't wear a blue costume on a blue screen. It's not gonna work. We wanted to have Dr. Crusher wearing black funeral, but there was a lot of concern among the higher ups that people wouldn't recognize the character if they weren't wearing the Starfleet uniform in a similar color to usual.
And that's part of the reason why the green confused people. Right. People were getting to the scene and thought it was a whole different character.
Who's this? Why are they at Yar's funeral?
Right.
So, please stop asking. Please stop asking.
How many question of the weeks did we get for that?
A ton. I mean, I had to sort through a lot of, why did you introduce a new character at the end of Skin of Evil?
And then never use her again.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, the fans.
They, it's like when you have a special needs child and it's like they're your child and you love them, but you always just think about abandoning them at a gas station somewhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes you
what would
wonder like
happen?
what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you murdered them,
Right.
and who would really come looking, you know?
Exactly.
So yeah, I understand your frustration there, Mitch.
But, we're still here. We're still being good parents, putting on the show.
Yep. Just for you. This is all a service.
Just for you, and for you.
Mm-hmm. And for you.
And for you.
I did actually have in my notes, not that this is surprising, but I did note, and I'm just realizing this, that it does feel like an anti-bullying PSA, the whole episode.
No, it's a pro-bullying PSA.
No, an anti-bullying PSA.
They
because
solved the day by bullying.
No. If Armis was not bullied to begin with, he wouldn't have killed Yar.
Okay, but they saved Troy directly by bullying Armis.
Well, no, because you know what it is. It's the bullied becomes the bully. He's lashing out against people by bullying them. All he wants is a reaction from them. He wants to see them suffer. So what Picard does is he doesn't give that to him.
No, but
that's what you're supposed to do with the bully.
Yes, but then Picard turns it around as like a psychic attack.
Yeah,
they left
I
you
guess
behind.
That's true.
They don't want you. And then Armis is like, raw.
Yeah, I guess he does take it a little too far.
Yeah. So that's what I mean when it's pro bullying, because they're like, oh, whenever he's got an emotional reaction, the frequency of his force field dips, whatever.
Right.
So they're like, oh, we need to produce a strong emotional reaction. So Picard goes down there by himself and just lays into him, just emotionally, about all the shit with Armis, and Armis can't handle it. And then they just beam. Then they beam both of those guys out of there, leaving Armis alone forever, and then bomb the planet from orbit.
Glass him.
That was such a wild shot to see the Enterprise just firing upon a planet from orbit.
Did they bomb it? Are you serious?
Yeah, they're like, okay, bomb the shuttle so that Armis can never escape.
That's amazing. I totally forgot about that. I thought they just left and declared it like an off-limits planet.
Well, they did do that too. But go back and watch that scene, because it's hilarious, the visual of Picard looking out the observation window and just seeing like a photon torpedo or something just jettison towards the planet, and then like a small boom. Right.
And, after having just beamed aboard, having bullied a petulant teenager black goo monster.
Yeah, into complete submission.
Yes. Yeah, it does feel like a little bit much, but I don't think that was the intention. In fact, it couldn't have been the intention.
Well, to me, like, when everybody in this episode exists, I guess Yar, except Yar, exists above Armis, where, like, at no step of the way is anybody even remotely close to giving into Armis. Like, everybody has this weird precognitions about what Armis is trying to do.
Yes.
Where
That's true.
Every time he does something, like, no, you just want me to say this, so then I will get angry, or I will get frustrated.
Right.
And he's like, all right, Data, shoot this person. And Data's like, well, I am not controlling myself, so you'd be the one that shoots them, not me.
They do make a lot of assumptions for an alien that, has no similarities with humans whatsoever, at least outwardly.
Right.
So how would you possibly know that it derives the same emotional satisfaction from bullying as humans do, right?
Yeah.
And they really do catch on a little too quickly. You are right about that. And I think that's part of what makes it feel so unnatural.
And it's funny in a way, because Armis's reaction to that is very overtly like, oh no, they found me out. All right, I'll try something else. Like,
right.
He's completely alongside of them. The two operate in parallel with a complete understanding of one another, which, like you said, is strange for such an alien species.
And not only that, but when the characters' motivations are solved 10 minutes into the episode, then it just becomes a back and forth of no you, which there's really no tension left.
Right. It's the whole thing with like, oh, let's bring Geordi down to look at the thing. Is is useless because Worf on the ship is the one who identifies the frequency thing. And also,
Yes.
it follows the same trajectory of every other scene. It's like, all right, Armus bullies some people. They don't give in. They beam back to the ship.
I mean, I guess the only thing I can say is that having killed Yar, when it does absorb Frakes, that
Yes.
is Riker, it is a little bit tense.
Yeah,
in that way.
That is cool. When Frakes is being pulled by this invisible force, and Armus gives the directives like, oh, you can't help him. If you help him, I'm just gonna fucking kill him. And he just vanishes in the tar. Is good, and the stakes are higher with a character already established as being dead.
Right, yeah. So someone's dead, someone's held captive, possibly dead.
Right.
Who knew if they were going to kill more than one?
Right. Which would have been that would have been wild. Riker and Yar died.
Yeah. I mean, Frakes himself almost died in there, if you recall.
I do.
Because he wouldn't let his stuntman do the goo scene.
Too much pride.
Yeah, he said something about like only women and LeVar need them. Stuntmen, that is. So.
Which was oddly aggressive because LeVar never did a stunt up to this point.
No. And I'm not sure he ever did.
No.
So, so Frakes came in, having eaten his 2 onion bagels for the day, waltzed up to the black goo, which it was made of some mixture of gel and printer ink or something like that.
You didn't want to touch it.
You did not, and he just waltzes right into it, just covers himself in it, and the whole thing with that is the stuntman was supposed to be equipped with kind of like a protective like cover, so he wasn't in contact with the goo that much. But Frakes went in basically naked, ended up swallowing a bunch of the stuff, and we had to rush him to the hospital to get his stomach pumped.
Well, there's that scene where like
delayed.
His face is coming out of it and then sinks back in.
Yep. 100% real.
Yeah, Frakes just took a breath at the wrong time, and talk about going down the wrong pipe.
But it did end up having a really cool effect in the episode.
It's a memorable shot, and you want to thank Frakes for his service.
Definitely.
Him and George really got along well during those scenes.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, and that's something we haven't talked about yet.
Right. Yeah, we alluded to this earlier, that the voice actor and the physical actor for Armus were not the same person, and the person in the Armus costume was actually Star Trek the original series alum George Takei. Takai? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, no, it's Takei.
Takei, okay.
I call him Takei at least.
I call him George. But
well, look at you.
Look at me. He calls me, hey you. So we were always looking for opportunities to have like these bridges between the original series and Next Generation. We had Bones on the first episode, if you remember that. And we're like, George, come back, do a cameo, do a role, anything you want to do, it's fine. And I don't know if it was Rick or Gene or someone of the higher ups, like, we don't really want to have an Asian on the screen. So they said, because like if you look at the cast, it's the main cast, it's pretty diverse, but there's no Oriental people.
And that is intentional.
Right. So there was still some lingering discomfort from that, and we're like, George, we want you to come back, but are you okay with being in costume? And George is like, yeah, I'll wear like a Klingon prosthetic, whatever you want me to do. And he was a little disappointed when we showed him the costume, but he's a professional. He did it, and he gave a great performance as Armus. Yeah.
Really, really stand-up guy, and especially with what he had to go through. So, I mean, the suit, as you'll recall, was made up of individual pieces that were glued together with this shoe glue, right?
Right.
And over the course of filming, as George had to just kind of just sit there in that weird, disgusting printer ink goo, it was actually melting the glue off of the suit, and it would just keep falling apart, and it would get into the suit and on his face and just everywhere. Thankfully, he was, a little more intelligent than Frakes when confronted with this. But really had to put up with a lot of shit.
I mean, I think George at this point would just do anything for Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything more important when judging someone's character than what they would do for Trek?
There isn't. It's moments like that define us as people, as actors, as professionals, as Trek men.
Someday, for you audience, someone is going to call on you to be the black goo monster. And whether or not you take it, that really is going to tell everyone what kind of person you are.
Yeah. Don't look a gift goo monster in the mouth.
Absolutely. So what else? I think that's about it, isn't it?
I believe so. Let me flip through my notes here one more time. Oh. There was one exchange that I found pretty funny. Mm-hmm. This is not at all important or relevant, but somebody says she's dead, followed by bring her to sickbay.
Oh man. Oh, that is great. And you don't really catch how ridiculous that is unless you really think about it,
It's a marvelous line.
That's pretty funny. What do I have in my notes here? I had a question. Who is Lynch in engineering?
Yeah, that was weird. I know we've had this ongoing main engineer battle, head engineer battle, with Cardigan and whoever the hell the other
Billy.
People. Billy, that's it. Now we got Lynch. It was a weird name drop for an appropriately weird amount of dialogue, and it was never touched on again. Oh,
yeah.
Here's another thing. They mentioned the ratio of matter to antimatter being 25-1.
What?
So Lynch, when he's prepping the engines, he's like, all right, we got our matter-antimatter ratio is 25-1. And if you remember, during Wesley Crusher's...
Oh my god, you're right!
Yes.
It's supposed to be 1-1.
Right.
That is hilarious.
So...
How did you remember that?
I don't know, but I know I was watching it, and I thought, wait a second, that's not true. I went to Starfleet Academy, I know this.
What the hell? I cannot believe this was contradicted over within 4 or 5 episodes.
There's only so much space jargon that the writers will know. Where it's like, all right, we're talking about the engines, matter, antimatter.
Right. But as such, it makes it a lot easier to pick up on as you're watching it.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Another quick hit. I thought this episode had an above average number of shots that were not in focus.
It definitely did. Yeah, I can see that.
Particularly in the beginning, there's like a reverse shot where Yar is talking to Riker, maybe Worf. And every time it cuts to Yar, she's just not in focus at all.
Uh-huh.
And you can see that within the first 90 seconds of the episode.
That is with Worf, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're talking about the fighting competition.
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, oh, you bet on me? And he's like, I am Klingon. That's all he ever says.
A Klingon warrior. I had a note when they first land on the planet and they walk up to Armus as he is kind of just sprawled out on the ground. I found it really funny how they were outwitted by a puddle. Like the crew is just outwitted by a small puddle. They try to go around it, and it won't let them go around.
They try going around it again, and they can't.
The act of watching them try to navigate going around a puddle, I thought was hilarious and somewhat inappropriate.
I thought the first act of this episode before the cut to the title sequence was oddly compelling, and I can't really explain why. But before like it got into the Armis stuff, the tone of it, I was pretty into.
Yeah. So I mean, like 1/5 of the episode is pretty good. Probably not even, right?
I think that's a higher hit rate than the Naked Now.
Maybe. I really think this episode is Trek at its worst.
Well, there's certainly a lot to hate about it.
Yeah, it's so horrible, and I'm so glad it's over.
The whole Armis thing does feel like a hokey original series.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Like that lizard monster that Kirk fights.
Right. Of course, the classic.
Who can forget?
The only episode I've ever seen.
Yeah, ask me what do I know about the original series? I know the silly Spock hand thing, and I know the lizard monster.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, it does have that feeling, and you know, we've had probably 4 or 5 episodes like that so far, and I guess it only really starts to kind of divert from that in season 2, really, right?
Yeah.
You don't tend to get anything like that.
Here's a question: How do you feel about the title Star Trek?
Its meaning is so lost on me now, knowing what Star Trek has been for all my life, that it's like Star Wars. You know, like Star Wars, as a phrase, is kind of like its own word, independent of the meaning of star and war. You know,
right? And that's true for Star Trek, but
yeah.
As a title, back when the original series was airing, and you see this, and you're like, okay, a trip into the stars. How do you feel about that as a title?
How do I feel about that as a title? I mean, better than Lost in Space.
Is it, though? I feel like Lost in Space is more descriptive.
Well, I mean, if the crew of the Enterprise were lost in space, that means they'd have no agency. I mean, I guess that's really just the plot of Voyager, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Voyager is lost in space.
Maybe they should have called it that.
Wouldn't that be wild?
Yeah.
Just drop Star Trek. Not Star Trek Lost in Space, just Lost in Space.
Just Lost in Space. Yeah, that would have been something.
I don't like Star Trek particularly as a title.
Okay.
I think it could have been a bit more dynamic.
Like,
I mean, I'm not a titler.
Oh, you're just pointing out the issue and offering no solutions.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, let's think of an alternative title for TNG.
Well, we need people like you, that's for sure. But yeah, we can think Star Tours.
Star Tours, that's okay. I like the Picard 6, or however many main crew members there are. That's good. What about Space Japes?
Space Japes.
Yeah, Space Japes.
Space Japes. I don't know. It feels like a little like jivey, you know.
All right. I feel that. What about So the Enterprise is about like science and exploration.
Yeah.
So what about Star Trek Discovery?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Damn, how did no one think of that?
I like it.
Or you know what? Since Picard is the main character, how about Star Trek Picard?
That is pretty good. It lets us know who the captain is, who to focus on, and who the most important person in the room is. Now, not to be confused with the casting of the show, which was Star Trek Pick Yar.
What?
So what's your question of the week? No. So what did you think of Skin of Evil overall? You had some.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I already kind of summarized it. I think it's the worst Star Trek can possibly get. at least as far as TNG goes.
I'm a little more lenient on it for some of the technical elements, but I do think it's in the bottom percentile of episodes. And that's putting aside the implications of killing off the main character.
Mm-hmm.
With that also being fumbled, I guess that might give it some additional flaws that drop it to the bottom.
Yeah, and I think it does do that for me. I think the killing of the main character, along with just how bad it is, really sours it for me.
Yeah. The only positive takeaway from this episode is Frakes covered in printer ink.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and the fact that the main character that was killed was played by Denise.
That's true. That's
you
true.
know,
we shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Right. I'm not trying to say that I, wanted Denise to be there or anything like that. I just thought as a narrative it could have been handled better.
It was just a bit upsetting. Like we told Gene all season, kill off Denise,
Mm-hmm.
kill off Denise, and he ended up killing off Yar, which was fine, but
Right, yeah. At the time, I mean, he was already kind of at the end of his life, really, and it was he would get the cast mixed up, like their names and the actors' names and the characters' names. So they were really interchangeable to him.
Mm-hmm. But really, this was an out of sight, out of mind thing. So if he mixed it up, it wasn't the biggest deal this time.
Right.
But still, we would have been nice. I digress.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really have a question for you this week, unfortunately. Only because I was trying to twist this little factoid into a question, but I don't think it would have worked well as one.
Okay. Well, I'm down just for some trivia.
Yeah. I just thought it was hilarious that in the next episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, what's it called? We'll always have Paris or something like that.
Yeah.
You can actually see Denise's arm in it.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't remember which shot that is, so be on the lookout for it.
Why didn't I know this? All right, I am. That's like a great thing to leave off on, because when I watch that episode for next week,
yeah,
I'm not going to be able to focus on anything but.
Well, how about we both, with that in mind, we both try to find it, and we'll see who can do it.
Okay, it's a competition. You want to bet something on it?
I mean, what is there to bet?
Tibet's a country in Asia, but
yeah.
If you wanted to bet something, then I'm out of ideas.
We can discuss it off air.
All right. We'll come back with an appropriately high stakes affair, and
right.
If neither of us find the arm, then that'll be embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. Double suicide, I think.
Double suicide. Not even a murder suicide, just a
double suicide.
Yeah. All right. So that'll do it for this week then, I guess. Come back next time for some Yarm actions, and some Paris. But until then, everybody, please stay readier.
The troublesome little man-child.
Consider that in the history of many worlds, there have always been disposable creatures.
Do you consider yourself superior to us?
Should have told him to mind his own damn business.
But I stroked the beard thusly. Do I not appear more intellectual?
Computer! Freeze program.
It's not a promising beginning.